What's up, everyone? Welcome back. This is Dr. Holmes, and you are watching Deep Dive and Drive. This is another episode I'm bringing to you all from a car. As you can see, safety first, I'm buckled. I'm headed to visit one of my graduate students, and I really want to talk about data alignment. If you know me, there are several things I like to talk about as it relates to education. Policy being one, effective leadership being another, but data being third. Like, you can't get into education, you can't create change, you can't grow, you can't move, you can't decrease gaps without really looking at data. Data is one of those things, though. It's a hit or miss in many schools. They may be looking at it, they may not. There are a couple of reasons why they may not be looking at it, right? It could be, number one, there's so many things happening in the building, from maybe behavior or just challenges with engagement, maybe not enough resources that they don't have time to look at data, or they feel like they don't have time to look at data, but that's a misnomer. You always have time to look at data. You have to just prioritize it. A second reason why people don't look at data likely is because it's sad. It's frightening to look at student performance, especially if the students are consistently underperforming. Um, who wants to look at that? It's depressing. It is not encouraging. It's not motivational, but it is realistic. I think if you don't look at the data, you're really not looking at where is and the opportunity to create success for students and teachers. So you have to look at data. Now, what I'm seeing in addition to those things is that there is a data misalignment. And so what we want is data alignment, that data seems to be consistent across the board, no matter what type of data you're looking at. This student seems to be performing at this level on multiple forms of assessment. That may not be true in a lot of cases, but let me tell you why. We keep preaching about teaching to the intent of the standard, but not just teaching to the intent, but giving students the opportunity to perform to the intent of the standard. That is two things that have to happen. We have to teach at a high level, and students have to perform at a high level. And that has to be related to the standard. If you want to keep worksheeting kids to death, and the answers are literally coming right out of a book, or right out of a workbook, or right off of a website, and it does not engage them in any level of critical thinking, they're not going to perform well on rigorous assessments. Because what they've done in the classroom most of the time is not a reflection of what they know can do and can apply. It really assesses if the kids can read. If you can read and find the word that goes into this missing blank, then you'll get it correct. If you can read and you can define this word based on what the text says, then you'll perform well. Standardized assessments are not based off of reading ability. It is comprehension and application. And I don't think we give most of our kids an opportunity to engage in learning at that level. So it has to be this level of synchrony between what they are taught, what they know, and what they can do. That's what the data should show. And it's going to show that in a way that there is a progression from where you start and then how you increase over time the rigor and the proficiency and the application. There's a marriage to that. Now, that is work that has to happen with like skilled professionals who understand the quality of the work that has to happen, can implement it, can monitor, can also deviate and pivot when they need to. It's not easy for a lot of people. So when we look at school-wide data, these are teacher-created assessments, teacher-created activities, maybe even school-wide created assessments. We may see that students are performing really, really well. I mean, averaging 80s and 90s on these assessments. But what school leaders and teachers have to ask themselves is this assessment in alignment with the standard, or am I asking the students consistently to perform below the standard? If they're consistently performing below the standard and they're getting A's, I'm not saying that is not real data. It is real data. But at what point are we going to elevate the expectation and the performance so that it is in alignment with the standard? If you are teaching a standardized test course, at some point these kids will take a test. And it will only be based on the standard. This is not definitions. This is not matching. For God's sake, this is not a crossword puzzle. This is not coloring. And there's a lot of that happening. There's a lot of that happening. You would be surprised, but that is not what real assessment look like. That's not what they are looking to have kids be engaged in. This is new context, new situations, and kids are being asked to apply their understanding to these contexts. So I challenge you, give kids an opportunity to show you what they can really do. I think sometimes we go into it with low expectations, and that's the product that we get. We get A's, but these are low expectation A's. These aren't real A's. So then students do eventually take a standardized test, whether it be reading and math, science, social studies, and they bottom out, right? Like the scores are, in some cases, let's be honest, the scores are embarrassing. Like they're way below the level of proficiency. Here in Georgia, they may be performing at the developing level. Some students are performing at the beginning level, and these are students who have been in classrooms for weeks, for months. And all the instruction led to a beginning learner rating. Like, that is wild to me. Like, that's the best they could do? And the answer is yes, because that's the best they were given. They did the best with what they were taught. That is their best given how they were expected to perform. Now, the challenge that we are now seeing is that you have high school students that are graduating who have met the expectation of the school, right? They are performing well. They're graduating with A's and B's. They have very high GPAs, 3.8s, 3.9s. But if we go back and look at their assessment scores on state assessments, they're low. Maybe proficiency, maybe. But oftentimes you have some students that are performing at the developing or beginning level. These are seniors, 13 years in school, including kindergarten. And they haven't technically passed an assessment since they've been in school, but they're graduating with very high scores based on the teacher's grades. When you look at those two things, classroom grades and scores and assessment data, real assessment data on standardized assessments, there's a misalignment. And what that translates into are high school graduates that are having to go to college and taking remedial courses because they can't even score well on entrance exams or can't get a decent score on the ACT or SAT to start off as a freshman taking freshman courses. So these classes they're taking, they're not even getting credit for because they're not college courses. They're below level courses to get them ready for college courses. So some students are wasting a whole year just trying to prepare themselves in college for college at a fee. We have to stop doing that. Now, let's take it out of the hands of high school graduates, right? We have middle school students who have great grades getting ready to go into high school. We all know the level of expectation with maturity is much different in high school than it is in middle school. On paper, they look like they're ready if we're looking at school grades. But when we look at assessment data, they're below performance. They're consistently underperforming. They're stagnant in developing or showing any level of growth. inconsistency, but we send them to high school anyway. Anyway, now teachers who are watching, I'll ask you, how much pressure do you feel to send kids on to the next grade or um, the next level? I know that you feel the pressure because I hear it. I have heard people say that we've got to get these kids out of here. They have to graduate. They have to go to high school. They can't stay in fifth grade. We have to send them to middle school. We have to. Who says that you have to? Who says that you have to? Are we are are we in the business of doing what's best for kids, or are we in the business of doing what's best for adults? Or are we in the business of just doing what looks great on paper to say these kids have these grades and these percentage of kids moved on to high school or moved on to become graduates? If you start tracking those kids beyond high school or beyond middle school to see how many actually graduated, how many went to college, then you'll really start seeing your true impact on learning or the lack of impact. We do it in elementary. We send kids to middle school from elementary who are not prepared. How do we know? Because some of them aren't even reading on the third grade level, and they go to sixth grade. They are not ready. What do you expect to happen to a sixth grade student who enters middle school not prepared? The likelihood of that kid even getting into high school is low. They can't read. They can't comprehend. There's no critical thinking. They feel defeated. They're not encouraged. They're not motivated. There's only one option. And for them, most of the time, that option is not graduation, unless they go to high school and that same level of rigor is then instilled as well. We're just going to keep moving them along. Simple task, low-level thinking, and we're going to move them on to the next grade. We'll move them on to 10th, 11th, 12th, and we'll make them high school graduates. Why? Because that's the least we could do for them. They may not ever go to college. They may not ever do anything academically, but at least we gave them a high school diploma and they can go and get a great job. Now, that could benefit from it. So we've got to challenge ourselves, right? And I'm telling you, teachers, right now, if you got leaders that are putting pressure on you to send kids on to the next level and you know they're not ready, stand 10 toes down in business and tell them, I don't feel comfortable doing that. And I know that you have the data to back up that decision. We've got to start standing up sometimes to some of these leaders because some of these leaders can be bullies. Some of these superintendents can be bullies. And every teacher across this nation signed contracts to maintain professionalism. Stand down or stand up for what you believe in. Maintain your character. Maintain your professionalism. Remember, you got into this business to do what was best for students. That's what you said. I am challenging you to do it and do it consistently. Doesn't matter who's the obstacle. You stand up. Tons of people are looking for teachers. If you're not comfortable at your current school and they don't believe in the same things that you believe in, and they're really not advocating for all children, and they don't really believe in student success, and they're not looking at data, sweetheart, brother, go and find you somewhere else to go that aligns with your beliefs as it relates to education and what really needs to happen with kids. But we've got to stop sending kids on when we have the evidence that shows that they are not ready to move on. And in addition to that, I'll go back to my same statement, get parents involved. We have to stop making decisions for kids by ourselves. We got to let mom and dad know what's going on. We got to let grandma and auntie and uncle, our godparents, know what's going on. They want to be involved. They want to help, but they can't help because they don't know. They can't help what they don't know. So sending emails and reminders, that's great. But for some kids, there are parents that need more than a remind message, right? They need a whole lot more. They need to be sitting literally at the table with you. So I encourage you, make the data make sense, guys. Make it align. Stand on business. Maintain your professionalism. Maintain professional courtesy. Maintain character. Maintain integrity. And let's do what's right for kids. Things aren't getting any easier if you haven't been watching the news. Things may be getting harder and harder for us in the field. So if you're not on the side of doing what's right, then you're on the other side. And you know what side that is. Be a voice, be an advocate for kids. And let's make sure we're putting them in the best position possible to be successful. Not because we just say it or we believe it. We've got the numbers to support that. All right. I have arrived at my destination. Hope you guys have an amazing, safe, blessed day. I will see you next time on Deep Dives and Drives with Dr. Holmes, Fully Engaged. Go check out the website. We've got a lot of great resources and support for parents and teachers and districts. And so it's all free, no charge. If you need me, you want to connect with me, maybe do some work together, feel free to reach out to me. I would love to talk with you and see what we can do in collaboration to do what's best for kids. Until then,